Thanks for tuning in. You're listening, you're watching the Brew Crew podcast. I'm back with my guys. Ewan, how are we doing? All the way from Auckland. And Alex.
Dodie, what's happening?
How are we doing, guys?
It's good to be back. It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, and we made it together.
Well, it's been a while since we recorded, but the last episode came out. That interview with Garrett was almost like 2 months ago, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot's changed in the last 2 months.
Yep.
Life looks a little different.
We've had babies. We are even more caffeinated.
That's right. Let's start with what's in the cup. I've got an Ethiopian today on ice pour over. It's still summer here.
Over? Love that.
I know. I knew you were going to love it.
Summer
it's still summer here. It's 75 degrees here in Seattle. We're still enjoying beautiful weather, so the ice pour over was the way to go.
I don't have anything in the cup at the moment because we actually had a very caffeinated morning, but this is what I've been brewing lately. We have a combo here.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Onyx, El Salvador, Santa Rosa, honey, and a wash process. So same bean, different processing methods. So, yeah, these have been pretty good. Been liking it. The interesting thing, and I think this is very indicative of this is the lot this comes from, but the grape really comes out. The flavor, grape flavor in both of them. This one's a little bit sweeter. This one's a little bit more, like black tea, kind of more like lighter floral. But yeah, so they're both.
Have you been able to do a side-by-side brew to see the difference of how it tastes with the two different processing methods?
I haven't.
That's cool.
But I've done them in one day. Honey in the morning, wash. And yeah.
Close enough. Can you notice much difference between the beans from the different processing method?
Yeah, I mean the honey is definitely it's a little bit sweeter. It's a little bit more I like the Onyx always does this on their boxes where they show modern to traditional, where does it land on the scale? So they show, hey, this honey process is probably a more modern, unique experimental flavor, whereas traditional is the black cup of coffee that you'll have. So the honey is definitely a little bit more, kind of think along the lines of not a really crazy Ethiopia, but really sweet and balanced. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice. Dodie, you'll be proud of the fact that I also have a ice pour over this morning.
In the martini glass. Let's get the audio.
You and tell us about that Aurea Sense carafe. How's that?
Oh yeah. So natural process Rwanda this morning. Ice pour over. It's not quite 75 degrees, but we're heading that way. It's 65 in New Zealand on our way to summer. So yeah, also picked up the Aurea V3 recently. I guess this is the other half of it, the carafe, which I'm loving it. It's great.
Nice.
First flat bottom brewer. I'm enjoying it. It's good.
Very cool. Speaking of coffee, Jake and I this morning, we went to the Five Stones, which you probably hear us talk about it. The Five Stones Kirkland opening. And it was great. We waited in line.
The official grand opening. I had a one-on-one. They have Olympia coffee roasters, so we had that. It's pretty good. I got a one-in-one, the single origin, and then they actually had a El Salvador Gesha, which is pretty good. Yeah, it's a cool shop. I think Jake and I were talking, Ewan's obviously in New Zealand, but Jake and I are going to see if we can maybe kind of do a tour interview with, Jake Archer, who's kind of the shop owner. So hopefully we'll have a cool content piece coming to you guys soon. But yeah.
I've seen photos of the space, and the fit out just looks so cool. They did such a good job.
Yeah, they have a spec custom Linnea PB, which is super cool. Has fully just custom wood chisels, and
it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a picture over here.
We'll put up a picture, and
and for anyone listening, if they haven't seen spec design, they do such cool stuff, right? So they're I think they're based in, is it Melbourne? Somewhere in Australia.
Yeah.
They do custom work on on espresso machines, like custom powder coating, and the work they did for Five Stones was really cool because that was both like custom color, but then they also did the like hand chiseled wood, right? Which just, I mean, they must have taken so much time, but it looks really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, super cool. Well, we didn't necessarily have a topic for today. I think we just kind of catch up and talk shop. I do have some new things. I feel like we always have new things to show since our podcast. First of all, we have the Film Mini.
Ewan is filling in for What's Brewing with Ewan. He's hijacking the segment for What's
He's
Brewing
taking
with
over
Alex today.
Ewan's, moral of the story, Ewan has been brewing. Like, don't you worry about it. But, yeah, we got got this. So I got it with the Moonshine Bird per Ewan's recommendation. So Ewan has this one. And it's been great. Like, I mean, if you look at the form factor, it's pretty heavy. It's like, what do you think? It's like 8 pounds maybe?
Lives up to its mini name.
Yeah. So it's been great. The magnets, it's so cool. The magnet on the top right here. But yeah, I think the big thing that I'm pumped about this is that it obviously does like pour over, right? But then I can also do decaf. So Brittany's always wanting a decaf. So rather than having to switch my settings back and forth, I have it kind of marked on here about like a rotation and a half. I know that's where I can go with decaf. So I can kind of use that and leave my Forte in its kind of fun space, not have to change it around. Which also brings me to that. So
another new piece of gear, the Forte.
Yeah, it's been a while since we recorded. So I had the X54, right? And we made the whole video of the single dosing hopper, and it was great. But unfortunately, after I think a lot of testing and we really wanted to make it work, I think the X54 just has a grind limitation in terms of how fine you can go when it came to single dosing. I think, again, part of that is maybe due to the hop. It's designed for a hopper. So I couldn't grind fine enough, and I tried shimming and doing all that, but just couldn't get it to work. So I ended up I bought a Baratza Forte from someone who actually works at Baratza. They were selling one. And it's been great. I actually can choke my machine now, which is exciting. It's frustrating, but exciting. And it uses basically the same burrs. So it has the Baratza Ditting, or basically like the SSP multi-purpose burrs of the 54 millimeter world. So yeah, it's been great. I just have been dialing it in this week for filter, so that's kind of fun to get to do. Like this, the honey process, actually I did it on filter on the flat burr, and it was pretty good. Brought out a little bit more of the acidity versus a little bit more of the kind of a cleaner cup that the conicals give you. So yeah, it was super good.
That seems like a great pair in the Forte and the flat burr, and the Lagon Mini for conical, and also like secondary for decaf and being portable for trips and things.
Yeah, and I would even honestly take this like on a trip too. If I weren't really needing to not have something heavy, maybe you wouldn't fly with this. But if you're going on like a road trip, as long as you have power, bring this guy, and like you're set.
Totally.
And Optional also recently brought out that the like not hard shell, but the like travel case, right, for the Lagon Mini. Which you can like zip up this little bag, and it already has the pre cutouts for the different spots and things. So yeah, that seems like such a good piece of kit for travel.
Yeah, so it's been good. I think I maybe don't have enough beans through it to be able to say 1-to-1 how does it compare to the Comandante C40, but it's close. I think the Comandante still has a little bit more nuance to some of the flavors. But I also just might not have it dialed in because I'm going just on rotations and looking at how the grind size is versus Comandante. 24 clicks is the same across every grinder that you'll use by them. So, yeah, but it's been good. And then, lastly, I got Lotus coffee water.
Oh, yeah, the Lotus. Yeah, cool.
These are just two of them, but basically liquid minerals, potassium, magnesium, sodium, and calcium. And you can you can scan this QR code here, and it pulls up recipes. So they have one, Lance has a recipe. It's kind of like high acidity, like really like light and bright is what it's called. Then they have like an all-around recipe. The nice thing about it is that you can do it in batches of 450 milliliters of water. So rather than doing a whole gallon, you can just take distilled water, and as you're doing the coffee, let's say, oh, for this coffee I want to do light and bright, or for this coffee I want to do, a well-rounded recipe. You can do it per batch or per brew, so you don't have to, I guess, do a whole gallon. And so far it's been good. It was actually, Jake and I actually just saw Garrett from Brewer Coffee Water this morning. He was at the Five Stones.
Good timing since this episode just went live.
Yeah. And I told him that I got some of this, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." Full disclosure, I was like, "Hey, it's not. I know you guys are maybe competitors, but what I was telling him is I've noticed through some of the brews I've done is that you definitely have to change your approach to how you're brewing, and maybe even grinding, because I think the cups that I've had from it, just off maybe like the half dozen that I've done, they haven't been like mind blowing. They've been different, and not like they haven't been like bad, but I don't think it's been like I've really gotten something new out of the bean, versus using like a perfect coffee water. I'd almost say, depending on what it is, I might like a perfect coffee water better than this, but also I don't know how those two correlate. So I don't know if I use light and bright, what should be my brewing, recipe. How should I brew it? What water temperature? So I'm hoping maybe they provide some more guidance around that, but I definitely kind of noticed that. So if that is kind of the case, I think it's great because it brings accessibility, so that if you want to get into the level of competition water, people competing like in World Barista, World Brewers Cup, they're using like highly customized water builds. So it brings that to like the home market, which is kind of nice. But
well, I'm curious because I've never really played with different kinds of water makeups, but I've heard that it can have a really significant impact on the flavor. Mm-hmm. If you have two waters that you make that are on like kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, however you measure that, how big is the impact on the flavor? Does it change things much?
I mean, it definitely, they definitely were two. They were very different. So I actually used it on the Dayglow of Ethiopia that they came out with. I think it really emphasized like the top end, like the light and bright. A lot of those kind of top end flavors and acids, I was getting not a lot of body, which, I mean, again, it was okay, but I wasn't like super in love with it. But definitely there was a lot of flavor in that water. The well-rounded one, I've only done that one a couple times, but it definitely was more well-rounded. There wasn't a lot of those kind of top end kind of flavors on your tongue that you're tasting. So yeah, I probably need to do some more testing with it, but I'd be interested. I feel like they put out the product and there hasn't been a lot of follow-up to say like, like I would love to see a video of Lance maybe brewing it, and maybe that's out there and I missed it, but I would love to kind of hear more from them about how they're doing it, what they recommend, like notes about it. There's only 2 recipes, I think, from what I've seen, unless I didn't really look very hard, but yeah, so it was good. But one thing that Garrett was saying was he's had people say, the powder in the gallon of water is great, but how can you make it easier? Can you guys just ship us like gallons of pre-made water? Which is a really interesting concept, because if most people are wanting it even simpler, this is definitely a very niche market of people that would want this. So I would say, yeah, they're competitors, but they're also in 2 very different spaces. This attracts a very different person.
I think it's nice that you can, before I ship a full gallon of pre-made water, I want to dial in my recipe, right? So even if I'm going to use that to make a gallon batch at home, I can test and go, how much do I want to use? What kind of recipe do I want to build? What coffees am I buying? Like Alex, we hear you talk about light and bright because you're probably not doing, you're probably not making a ton of the fuller bodied, like regular recipe, darker roasted coffee recipes. Mm-hmm. But, you can kind of test and play with what you want. And then, once you get your golden ticket, then you can scale it.
Yeah, so they do have recipes for a whole gallon as well. It's a lot of drops. Like it makes me wonder, you had asked how long will they last? I don't actually know. I've been using the potassium one fairly. You can kind of see it's still like pretty high up there. I don't know how long they'll last. I don't know their like refilling option, but you can make a gallon. Like I think it was like 50 drops of like calcium or something or whatever. But yeah, but you can actually try it out before you commit to it fully. Good level. So
that's a tough at home use, right? Like trying to count out 50 drops is it's probably better to just do it by brew.
Like I would lose count. Because even Garrett was saying, well, what if you accidentally drop one more drop of calcium, then you completely change the makeup of the water. So you definitely have to have
right on.
Some science about it, but yeah. So that's all I got.
And then the other thing that's changed since our last recording is both Alex and I have had our first kids, which is awesome. So Alex, congratulations on probably 10 weeks in now with baby little Sealer. 8 weeks, awesome. How is having your first kid changed the way that you brew coffee?
Not at all. I'm still brewing, and I'm brewing more than ever. That's how it's changed it. Yeah, that boils it down. That's my answer. Maybe it's different for you. I'm just
hasn't changed, just more coffee.
Yeah.
And how about you, Ewan?
Probably similar. Yeah, I feel like it hasn't changed too much. I'll brew a coffee in a little bit of a rush before I head out the door to go to work in the morning, and then I guess my process is kind of the same, just probably drinking more than I was before. So probably same as Alex.
Yeah, he does baby cuppings every day. He mixes a little bit of coffee with the milk just to slowly build up the resistance. So.
I was hoping I had a faint thought that it might simplify your routine. You wouldn't take quite so many prep steps. It would be more of like a force you guys to like use a Mr. Coffee pot or do batch brew. But
I don't think I can ever go to the stage of a Mr. Coffee pot. But I think it probably has changed a little bit in that like during the week is probably just more make a coffee for the caffeine before I go out to work in the morning.
To serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm. But then I guess my weekends become a bit more of like I'll get a bit more time to brew something more like an ice pour over, which I wouldn't have time for in the morning when I go home from work. Between changing diapers and
yeah. So okay, wait, that's a good question. So has there been a point in being a new father where you had to say, I don't have the time to commit to making a really good cup of coffee, so I'm just not going to brew. I'm going to swing through a drive-through somewhere on my way to where I'm going, or like that decision had to be made?
I don't think I've had, maybe one time, but it's not as much. I did make a lot. I made a lot of Mocha Master brews, just because sure it's easier, but also there's kind of like a romantic idea behind a pot of drip coffee. That's kind of like a couple mornings I did just set it up to brew automatically, but yeah.
I feel like I've been brewing when I've been in a rush and I haven't had time. I've been brewing a lot less pour over and probably a lot less lattes where I'm having to steam the milk and all that, and probably more just grind WDT, put it in, hit go, and do like just a turbo shot, just espresso.
Yeah,
and the Decent's great because it has the automatic stop by weight. So I'll drop it in, hit go, and it'll automatically stop at 50 grams. And then I'll just have just espresso, and that's kind of faster and easier. And it's quicker to drink as well.
The turbo shot is the ideal newborn father coffee order.
Ideal.
The at-home coffee, yeah.
And I feel like the Decent's great because you can go as like intricate and dial in as much as you want for when you got the time, but then also it can be as simple as do your WDT, put it in, hit go, and then just walk away because it will just automatically stop at the right weight. So that kind of makes it pretty easy when you just want something quick, but still something that tastes good. it's kind of like, I was saying to you guys the other day when we're talking about something different in a different context, but it's kind of like the side rails, the bumper rails when you go on Temp and Bowling, you know? It's like if you just want to you just want a quick, easy shot that still tastes good, the Decent has. Yeah, with the flow limiters and a bunch of different stuff that the Decent does. It's kind of like having the bumper rails on your Temp and Bowling, you know?
Okay, well, I think lastly we want to cover just a couple of things that are coming up in the coffee world. Alex and I are going to Coffee Fest next week, so that'll be awesome. Mm-hmm. Coffee Fest Seattle, and then maybe up to the AeroPress Brews Championship.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Maybe
we'll see what happens. I guess the AeroPress World Championship is in in Vancouver in December. So
Vancouver, BC. Yeah, so just up over the border in Canada.
So that could be cool, being in close proximity to go be a part of that, or not be a part of it, but like to go watch it. So, yeah. So we'll see what happens. But we're gonna Coffee Fest probably will be happening when we push this episode live. So we'll try to just find a couple booths. It's not as big as SCA. It's a little bit smaller, but Coffee Fest is probably more geared towards people who are actually in the coffee industry, like working cafes and stuff. So you could argue we're in the coffee industry, but it's just a very different degree. But we'll be there. We'll try to get we'll kind of see who's there. I know Sinessa will be there. They'll have their new S1, whatever, their Decent lookalike machine. That'll be kind of cool to see. I heard Luminous might make a booth, which would be great to go talk to Mason.
That would be awesome.
Cool.
So yeah,
we'll try and snag some interviews.
Yeah,
we'll see.
So hopefully we'll get some fun stuff with that. Maybe we'll do like an iPhone 14 motion shot of just sprinting through everything, and it'll be all like smoothed out like a gimbal. So yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. And then lastly, I've just been kind of thinking about this. The xBloom coffee brewer, and I just linked it to you guys in the chat here if you want to pull it up, and I'll put it on the screen so you can follow along. So basically, this is kind of a new brewer that's coming out. It's been kind of making its rounds in the coffee influencer sphere. It kind of, to me, looks like a Keurig on steroids, in the sense that it has two kind of, it's basically, you can see on the screen, it's like a big kind of vertical machine. One half is a grinder that has a nearly 48 millimeter burrs. And then the other half is basically like an automated brewer. And then it uses kind of pods, and the pods look to be biodegradable potentially, but they look like a really tiny, like Orea pod, almost like a Kalita flatbed. So you order coffee pods like you would Keurig. So you would say, I want to buy an Onyx coffee pod, Southern Weather. Comes pre-dosed with, let's say, 16 grams of coffee, their whole bean. So you scan like a little code on the top of the machine. I don't know if it's a RFID or a QR code. Tells the machine, hey, you're brewing Onyx Southern Weather. Great. Put it in the grinder. I think it adjusts the grind size based on, so it basically presets everything based on what you just scanned in. So Onyx tells them, this is how we would brew it, this many pulses, this much water, this temperature, etc. So you put it in, you grind it into the basket, and then it kind of moves over, actually. So it has like a little robotic arm. And then it starts brewing from there using a really precise kind of water spout. It even has like the little arm kind of like jiggles a little bit to create agitation, to kind of like, just to level the bed. So basically looks like a pretty crazy automated, almost like a super automatic for filter brewing. They actually just also announced the price. Subscribe to their emails. So their super early bird, which is in 5 days on Kickstarter, which probably by the time this comes out, it'll be out Thursday, September 29th. It's $3.99. So that's going to be the half off, basically. And then MSRP, it's going to be $7.99. And if you do super early bird, the package comes with 32 pods. I don't know how much the pods will be, but
afterwards,
yeah. So kind of like it's like the Google execs like Keurig, but it makes me kind of
the at-home pour steady. Is that
Yeah, I mean maybe, but
Close.
Yeah, we can see it.
Interesting.
Like
do you know who's in? Do you know who's involved in, like, who created the idea or who's involved in the project?
I think it's some guys in the Bay Area, from what I know. I think at least for sure Northern California. I think I had seen maybe Brian Kwan is doing some stuff with them. I don't know if he's like taking a role on their team.
John Allen from Onyx Coffee Lab is a co-founder.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Oh, he's the co-founder of xBloom?
Yeah,
okay.
And then Ryan from Verve.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's cool. Did you see that on the website?
Yeah.
Oh, look at Jake doing all those research.
I hadn't heard of this before, so I was just taking a look as you're talking through as well. Interesting.
Yeah, so looks pretty cool. They're partnering with a bunch of roasters: Regalia, Verve, Onyx,
Sightglass.
Yeah, Sightglass, Chromatic. I've had them. Counterculture, Intelligentsia. So like, I mean, a lot of really well-known roasters. Actually, I just saw Scott Rao is one of their advisors now, kind of for the company.
Okay.
So you know, if Scott's involved, I think he said like it's actually legit. So it's definitely kind of making some noise in the coffee world, but it also kind of got me thinking. Okay, I mean, let's think about the price. $3.99 for super early bird. I think at that point it's a good deal because you're getting like a coffee grinder. I mean, you know, it's like buying almost at that point $3.99. You know, buying a grinder and then all the materials you would need: a kettle, pour over filters, and all that. But I do wonder who in the current home brewing market would be interested in this, because you technically, for a lot of people now, like, you already have a grinder. You can just brew by hand yourself. You can buy the beans on their own. So I'm interested to see, like, who do we think this is for? And, like, who are the types of people that would buy it? Because, I mean, even $800 at a full price, that does seem like a lot. But I do wonder, like, what do you guys think is kind of like that? Who's the person who buys this? So if someone's listening, like, how do they know this is for me? You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of my
If you think about a home setup, and especially if you're going to travel with it, right? If I buy a scale and a brewer and a kettle and I want to go on a road trip, am I going to bring my xBloom or am I going to bring my mobile brewing setup?
Yeah.
Or am I the type of person that travels with it?
I mean, I feel like it would be pretty intense to travel with. But
totally.
I do. It does make me think. Like, let's say, you know, we have a friend, Elliot, who basically he does his espresso, but he's very, like, everything is to the T. So, like, he has the specific beans he wants, but he might not be the person who's going to go out and buy, like you, and like the Oria, or buy like a kettle and do all that. So I wonder if for that type of person who kind of wants consistency and not needing to watch 5 Lance Hedrick videos to figure out how to brew a really good cup of coffee, right? I think maybe that's the person who decides, oh yeah, this is great. Because, I mean, it's basically doing it all for you. But it does look, I think, to Jake's point, like Forseti at home does seem kind of intriguing to kind of have that. Or I even wonder if this maybe gains traction in like some workplaces, like small offices, to where.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I mean, looking at the
like
website, a lot of their messaging is around like your home coffee professionally made. So a lot of their messaging is like design, and their photos and things are in the home. But I feel like it's kind of the perfect kind of thing in a workplace where it's like you want a good tasting coffee, but easy enough that anyone can just walk up, put something in, hit go, and get something that tastes good.
Totally.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that'll be cool.
It's kind of cool.
I'm sure we'll see more about it. Jake, I don't think John Allen is the founder. I think he's just quoted here on the website.
Oh, I see.
Co-owner Brian, co-owner for John Allen, co-owner or co-founder of Onyx.
Oh, I read that as co-founder and co-owner of xBloom, but they're just citing the credibility of the quote.
Yeah. Oh, and it says their
pods. Quote there from Matt from Lifestyle Lab as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
It says their
Matt
pods
does some bunch of stuff on YouTube.
So turn your pods into seed incubators and enjoy a second bloom on the windowsill. Interesting. So, yeah, there's not much more about that, but that's the xBloom.
Stay tuned to find out who actually owns xBloom.
Yeah, they've done some in-person events. I know they did one in
West Hollywood. But yeah, very interesting. So,
all right. Well, that's a wrap for today, boys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And next time
we will have CopyFest recap and or interview video. So be looking for that.
Cool, good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
See you next time.
Wrap.
Cheers.